Hello, my name's Jackie, welcome back to my channel, and in this video I'm going to attempt to continue plotting my books from Nanowrimo using the Save the Cat method. Now if you saw my last video, which I will link somewhere, you will know that my intention was to take a few days to really focus on the Save the Cat exercises in more detail, because last time, which was 1 week ago now, I was sitting down trying to do it sort of all on the spot, and what I realized was my ideas are in such a fetal state. They have so little development that I really struggled to get beyond what I already knew. So for the 3 ideas I'm playing with, I have a general concept. For a couple of them I have scenes, but that's it. And that meant when I started trying to use the Save the Cat beat sheet to map things out, I got to the midpoint, not even in some books. Some of them I just had the opening scene and that was it, and I didn't know where to go from there. So my plan was to spend a few days delving in and out of the exercises and continue working on the book and letting it marinate a bit, so that when I came back to do the rest of the beat sheet, it would be more developed and hopefully I'd have a stronger starting point. The problem is that it has been a week and I have done nothing. I have had a really crazy week at work. I had a ton to catch up on because I was away for 4 days because I was in Istanbul for a conference. So it's just been this crazy week of catching up, plus I've got 2 new team members who I'm trying to train along with the other members of my team. There was an announcement relating to Brexit because we're in a financial company, so there were just quite a lot of things happening this week, and it meant that every time I got home I just crashed. I had nothing left for these projects. Until today, when I realised that it's October 20, which means Nanowrimo is 11 days away and I still have no idea what I'm going to write. And even if I pick one of the ideas at the moment, I would probably write the opening scene and just hope for the best. Which was not what I had planned. I mean, this is my first time doing Nanowrimo. I really don't want to fail. I know that if you plot out a book before you get started, you've got a far greater chance of succeeding. If you have all of the key scenes listed out in front of you, then when you sit down to write, you'll know exactly what you're writing, rather than Googling or twiddling your thumbs or staring at a blank screen and suddenly your writing time for the day is done and you are 1,667 words behind your target. And honestly, I don't see myself getting to the stage where I have a fully plotted book by the end of the month. And I'm not sure what to do about it. I mean, I still want to try Nanowrimo, but I really don't want to fail. I don't know what this means. I mean, do other people have everything planned out before they go into Nanowrimo? Or do people go into Nanowrimo being like totally okay with failing? Because I don't want to commit to doing something and then not do it. So it's causing a little bit of anxiety for me. But anyway, the focus of today's video is just finishing the Save the Cat process. So last week what I did was my logline. I picked genres for each of my ideas. I did the who is it about, so adjectives to describe the main character. Ooh, I can't remember off the top of my head. The main character, the antagonist, and the problem they're facing, I think. And I attempted to do the beat sheet. Today I want to finish the beat sheet, so I have all 15 story beats that need to be covered. I also want to try the storyboarding exercise. However, the storyboarding exercise relies on having completed the beat sheet, because you go from 15 story beats to having a storyboard that has 40 different scenes. So I have no idea how this is going to go, but it should be interesting. So I'm back. It's been about 3 hours since I last turned off the camera, and I am pleasantly surprised with my progress, which I was not expecting. When I started to record today, I honestly thought that I wouldn't get anywhere with this process, that I didn't have enough of an idea, and that meant I would never be able to fill out these beats. And part of me was thinking maybe I wouldn't have anything done in time for Nanowrimo and I wouldn't do it. And that's not to say that I'd stop writing entirely. Like, I still think this is a valuable process, but I was thinking I wouldn't be ready in time for Nanowrimo and I would just continue plotting and maybe start writing something later in the month or even December. However, I have made progress, so there is hope once again. So what I have done so far is I have mapped out the story beats for my 3 ideas, and all of them have stuff. So if I show you my notebook, you'll see the pages from last week when I first tried doing this. They're only half full. Each of the ideas only has really an opening scene. A couple of them have some ideas going up to the midpoint. There's nothing in the second act for anything. However, if you look at the stuff I've written today, you'll see there's just so much more. So I did everything in the same order that I did last week. So I started with Powerless, then did Vampire Board Games, then did Happily Ever After. And if you look at my notepad, so this might not seem like a lot to you, but considering I had like a couple of images from dreams, I'm really happy with this. So you'll see Powerless, I've got 3 pages of very messy notes. This is where Vampire Board Games starts, and again, I think I've got 2.5 pages this time. And then Happily Ever After, which is clocking in at 2 pages. Now, these are not complete outlines by any measure. There are still question marks in there, there are still blank spaces in there for beats I couldn't think of. However, I'm surprised that I have so much there. Like, I could actually write several thousand words on this. Maybe not 50,000, but we'll see how I go. So yeah, all in all, I'm really happy with the process and think that if you're following the Save the Cat method and following Blake Snyder's beat sheet, then just take a little bit of extra time, give yourself some days to think about it. And rather than writing out everything on a single page up front, which is what I did, so I had opening image, 2 lines, theme, 2 lines, setup, 2 lines, catalyst, 2 lines, and so on. I had everything listed in the margins of 1 page, and I found that quite restrictive last week. It didn't give me a lot of time for imagination, whereas this time I just wrote down 1 beat at a time, and each of these have quite a bit on setup. So I think, yeah, Vampire Board Games has a whole page of setup written down. Powerless has about 3/4 of a page, and Happily Ever After has a half a page. And I think just spending that extra time there made everything else flow much more easily. And the same thing when I got to each beat, I just spent all the time I needed on that beat, and yeah, I'm really happy with how much I've got. From here I'm going to continue working on this. There's actually a live AuthorTube chat that Kate Kavanagh's doing on her channel, like in 1 minute and 11 seconds. So from here I'm going to continue working on this. There's actually a live video happening on Kate Kavanagh's channel. It's an AuthorTube chat about Nanowrimo, so I'll have that on the background as I continue working on this. It is starting in 1 minute, so I'll quickly finish up here, and from here I think I'll check in tomorrow to continue with the storyboarding part of the exercise. So I'll see you then. So it's the next day and I'm back to continue with the Save the Cat process. So what I've done so far is logline, genre, who's it about, and beat sheet. And the next step is to do a storyboard. Now to do this, you start with a blank bit of paper, a pin-up board or a wall, and you divide it into 4 horizontal lines. These lines are Act 1, the first half of Act 2, the second half of Act 2, and Act 3. Then you start mapping out your story by adding Blake's story beats to this. So they include your opening image, catalyst, debate, break into 2, B-story, fun and games, midpoint, bad guys close in, all is lost, dark night of the soul, break into 3, finale, and final image. And when you're done, you might have something like this. Ooh, I don't know how well the camera is going to pick up the yellow. Hang on. Let's try this one, which has green post-its. Looks like it's still as bad. But anyway, each of these post-its is one of the story beats. Some of them are still blank, just because I'm not sure what goes there. And the gaps in between them are because these 15 story beats aren't all of the scenes that will go into your movie, or in this case, book. Instead, you should have about 40 scenes, so 10 per line. Now, don't know how well you can see this, but I'm not going to fit 10 post-its per line. I really need a bigger bit of paper, but I will try my best. So I don't know if you could see this on the storyboards I was holding up, but on each post-it or each card, Blake recommends including the name of the scene, an emotional change that happens in the scene, and the main conflict in the scene. An example he gives of this is coffee shop day. Bob confronts Helen about her secret. Bob starts out hopeful, ends up disappointed, so that's the emotional change. And Bob wants to know a secret, Helen can't tell him. That's the conflict. Now, I'm struggling with this a little bit because I've just been thinking of events and not so much the emotional change. And I don't know if it's realistic to expect an emotional change in your characters every single scene. And it really makes me want to go and watch some of the films, especially the ones he refers to in this, to see if that happens. Like, in Miss Congeniality, does every single scene have an emotional change, or is it just the key ones? Same thing with Legally Blonde, and I'm picking these lighter films because I'd expect there'd be less emotional turmoil than something like a drama. But this is what he says to do, so let's do it. So since it didn't look like my phone was picking up the boards very well, I thought I'd give you a closer look. So this is what I've got so far for Powerless, and this one here is what I've got so far for Vampire Board Games. So I've now completed all of the exercises from Save the Cat that are part of the preparation stage, so everything you do before you start writing. As I mentioned in my last video, the last couple of chapters of Save the Cat are more diagnosis tools, I feel like. I felt they would be really useful once you already have something written and you can go back and diagnose why it's not working. So when it comes to what to do before you start writing, the exercises were your logline, picking a genre, knowing who it's about, doing the 15 story beats, and doing the board. Now, I wouldn't say I'm finished, but I thought since I was already filming today, it was a good opportunity to give you my thoughts on the process. All in all, I loved it. I think this is so helpful. I just wish I had a little bit more time before November so I could just spend a bit more time thinking about these stories and coming up with interesting ideas for scenes. So I've got the board for each of my stories with me. So this is Powerless. This is Vampire Board Games. And this very empty one is Happily Ever After. Now, when you're done with the storyboarding, you're supposed to have 40 scenes, so 10 on each row. I don't have anywhere near that. On the two that are more fleshed out, so that's Powerless and Vampire Board Games, I have about 15. And one of the reasons for that is I haven't spent a lot of time on this. I did this for maybe half an hour after work yesterday, and today I've been doing it for maybe an hour, so there hasn't been a lot of time put into this yet, so I wouldn't expect to see a full 40 scenes. However, the other thing that I found a little bit challenging was that a number of the beats in Blake's beat sheet seem to flow really nicely one from the other. Now, if you saw my Take Off Your Pants video, you might remember that one of the issues I had with that plotting method was that it felt very much like something happened and then something happened and then something happened. It was like random event after random event. There wasn't clear cause and effect. It wasn't clear how one scene triggered or flowed into the next. Whereas in this beat sheet, there are a few examples where that is the case. So you have your catalyst, which kicks off the story. You have your debate, which is when the hero is either thinking about whether or not I should do this or whether or not I can do this. Or it might be the audience questioning whether or not the hero can do this. So that clearly flows on from the catalyst. The next one is break into two, so breaking into Act 2. And that's the point when the character decides, no, I am doing this, and steps forward into their mission. So those three, when I was mapping out these storyboards, for me, they're just bam, 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 it's one after the other. So if I'm adding another 7 scenes beyond that to that act of the story. I'm not sure where they go. I think 7 scenes of setup, which would all come before that, are probably a bit much. But I don't know, unless we have like multiple debates or something, or I suppose a multi-scene catalyst, I'm not really sure how you would expand that into 10 scenes. And that was the case with the end of Act 2 as well. So you have the All Is Lost moment, the Dark Night of the Soul, which pretty much happened at the exact same time. I mean, as far as page counts go, you've got All Is Lost on page 75. Remember that these page counts are for writing a script, not for a novel, but they give you a sense of where they should fit proportionately in the plot. So that's 75 pages out of 110. So All Is Lost is on page 75, and then The Dark Night of the Soul is 75 to 85. So they could actually be part of the same scene, and then break into 3. So the break into Act 3 is when the hero realizes something or someone helps them and they get out of that dark night and move into the next thing. So what I found was that I had ideas for how one event would trigger another, and I really liked that snowball effect, but I wasn't sure how to add extra scenes without slowing it down. But what I have now is not going to be a book, so we'll see how I go with a few more days of thinking. The other challenge I had with this process, which I also mentioned in the part 1 video, is that it did feel a bit rushed. And I don't think that's just because I've been trying to do this quite quickly, like around my day job and in the weekends leading up to November. So if I recap the steps again, you're going to know them by heart by the end of this video. Your logline is the 1-line description of what this story is, and it should be catchy and selly and make people want to read it or watch it. Your genre, we all know what genres are, self-explanatory. Who is it about is then the main character. Or the main character and the antagonist, but all that was involved in that exercise was coming up with an adjective to describe each of them, which you could then use to bolster your logline, which I think is a good tool for marketing, but it doesn't actually give you time to look at the cast of characters. And I feel like not knowing a lot about the world or the cast of characters means that when you get onto the beat sheet, it's really hard to fill those gaps because you don't know who you're working with. So one example, for instance, is in vampire board games, I thought there could be a cool setup scene where the main character's gathering everyone to go for dinner, and it would almost be like in a movie where you get a montage and each character gets like a snippet where you get to see how weird and quirky they are. And I really like that idea. The problem is I don't know who any of these characters are. So what I really wanted to do when I was writing like a note for that scene was, rather than focusing on the beat sheet, I really just wanted to take some time aside and start mapping out the family tree and figure out who was who and what made them all weird and what the dynamics were, because they've all been stuck in this house for so long. So all in all, really loved this process. I will definitely do this again, hopefully with a bit more time so I can actually do my proper 40 scene storyboard. Having said that, I do think there are a couple of steps missing, and what I'd really like to do next time is take some more time to play with the idea and even just do some stream of consciousness writing where I write out not just a 1-paragraph description of the idea off the top of my head, but all of the, oh well, what could happen in this world and what could happen in this story and who are the people I'm going to be playing with and what are their quirks and how do they engage. And when you start playing with that, I think that gives you a lot of ideas so that when you get to this storyboard, so again here, you already have ideas to fill those gaps. That's it for me on Save the Cat. If I do have some more luck in the next day, I will add another shot of my final storyboards to this video. Having said that, November is next week, and I still want to go through the story engineering process as well as combining the work that I've done for Take Off Your Pants and Save the Cat and story engineering, so I don't know how realistic that is. But anyway, if you like this video, please remember to like and subscribe. And in the comments, I'd love if you could share your own experiences of working with Save the Cat, or if you have used any other plotting or planning or outlining methods for your books, and what has worked for you, and what are some of the things you noticed that could be better. Until next time, bye.